Over to the US now, and joining us live is the Liberal Senator, Shadow Minister for Cybersecurity, James Patterson, as well. James, good to see you in the US. What a time to be there. What do you make of the Trump side show while you're there?
Well, Peter, I was in New York City on the weekend for some meetings, and I can confirm the city is operating completely as normal. You wouldn't know what's going on. Certainly attracting a lot of media attention, but not something I'll be commenting on as a legal process in a foreign country.
Well, what we got you on is to talk about TikTok and the fact that we've spoken about this for weeks, if not months now. The government, it looks as though, according to reports, the government will ban TikTok from government devices. So what's your response to that?
Well, I hope, first of all, that that's right, because we've had a couple of false starts and the media's been speculating for weeks that the government's been about to announce a ban, and they haven't done so yet. So I really hope it is right. And I do welcome it, but it is very, very late. As you said, we've been talking about this issue on this program for almost a year. It was 10 months ago that TikTok admitted to me in a letter that Australian user data is accessible and has been accessed in mainland China, which of course puts it in the hands of the Chinese Communist Party under their intelligence laws. And our closest allies and friends have been acting for months. It's more than 90 days since the US banned it on their government devices. The UK, Canada, New Zealand, the European Union, France, so many others have followed suit. And I have to say, in my discussions while I'm here with members of Congress and officials in the administration and defence industry, many of them have been puzzled and wondering why Australia is so out of step and so far behind.
Okay, well, the Labor Party or the government has put this on you in recent times and suggested, well, why didn't you do anything about it when you were in government?
Well, all of the major revelations about TikTok's national security risks have happened on their watch. All of our allies have banned it on their watch. It was in December last year, for example, that TikTok admitted that it had used the application to spy on journalists to try and identify their sources, something that in October last year they were accused of but denied and said wasn't technically possible. It's why I first wrote to Claire O'Neill about this in July. I initially didn't receive a response, so I wrote to the Prime Minister in October. And finally now, all these months later, it looks like they're acting. But they're in government. They have to take responsibility and they need to move much more quickly.
OK, so it looks as though it's going to be banned on government devices. But according to reports, James, a broader ban on the app in the private domain is not going to happen. So what are your thoughts on that?
Well, it's good that it's going to be banned from government devices because it removes that espionage risk to public servants. But the data privacy and security risks and also the foreign interference risks that affect millions of Australians who use the platform are so far and yet not to be dealt with, and they have to be dealt with. Dealing with it on government devices is only a start. I'm very prepared to work with the government in a bipartisan way because this is a complex problem. And in the United States, they're having a very active debate about whether banning the app is necessary to achieve that or whether other measures can achieve that. For example, forcing ByteDance to divest its ownership of TikTok to a non-Chinese owner. Australia needs to be part of that conversation. We need to be involved in that debate, but we're not even at first base yet.
OK, so politicians, they should not, in your view, they shouldn't be allowed to use it on their private phones as well?
Well, I don't use it on my phone. It is a judgment of individual politicians as to what they do. Putting it on your private phone at least removes the risk that it could potentially access your other apps that are work-related, but it doesn't remove the risk that it could, for example, identify your physical location and draw inferences out about that. So there are real risks if politicians continue to use it, but it's their individual judgment.
But could ByteDance, I mean, would you be supportive of that?
Well, I think politicians should make their own judgments. Okay. It is a tool to communicate with their constituents. It's up to them, but I don't have it on my device and I never have.
OK, but it looks as though the states are going to follow, in particular your state of Victoria. It looks like Daniel Andrews is going to fall right behind Anthony Albanese already. Your thoughts on that catching on?
Well, I welcome that. That's a really good initiative. I hope every other state and territory follows. But it was actually only a few weeks ago that an official within the Department of Environment and Climate Change at the state level in Victoria issued a ban on that application on all work devices. And the Premier's office overruled it. And the Premier publicly attacked that official and said they had no authority to make that decision and reverse that decision. I think the Premier owes that public servant an apology. They were publicly attacked for doing their job. It turns out they were right, and Daniel Andrews is finally implementing what they were just being much more proactive about. So it's good that the states are following, but I hope they do so properly.
OK, and just a final one here. I mean, it's so popular, TikTok, particularly with the youngsters. I mean, should it still be able to be in place, TikTok, as it is, for the private community, for the kids?
My view is that all options need to be on the table because this is not only a data security risk for all those users and young people, but it's also a foreign interference risk. The reality is many young people get their news, current affairs and information about the world through applications like TikTok. And it would be trivially easy for the Chinese Communist Party to direct ByteDance and TikTok to suppress narratives that are contrary to their interests, to promote narratives that support their interest, or to just sow division and undermine social cohesion and national unity. We cannot allow in this strategic environment an authoritarian state to have unregulated access to millions of Australians' devices.
Okay, so how do you regulate
this does have to be dealt with, and every option has to be on the table.
Such as?
Well, the first step is not ruling out banning it, because if TikTok believes that you won't ban it, then they won't come to the table to talk about those other possible solutions.
Right.
One of the solutions is a potential divestment of TikTok from ByteDance, because it is the ultimate corporate control of TikTok by ByteDance, which is the core of the problem, because ByteDance is intimately tied to the Chinese Communist Party, and all of its employees are subject to the intelligence laws of China.
Yeah, and that's what the US is looking at too at the moment. James, we're out of time. Appreciate your time, though. Thanks for coming into us. There from Washington, D.C., James Patterson. Talk to you soon.